I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. The white lace dress hugged my body perfectly. My mum had saved for 2 years to buy it. Every stitch felt like love sewn into fabric. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I was marrying Derek, the man I'd loved since high school. My hands trembled as I adjusted the veil. Through the thin walls of the church dressing room, I could hear guests arriving. Laughter echoed down the hallway. Someone was testing the microphone in the main hall. My bridesmaids were getting their makeup touched up in the next room. I took a deep breath and smiled at myself. In 30 minutes, I would walk down that aisle. In 30 minutes, I would become Mrs. Derek Thompson. Nothing could ruin this moment. Or so I thought. I heard a knock on the door. Before I could answer, it swung open. My Aunt Linda walked in, her face tight with an expression I couldn't read. Aunt Linda closed the door behind her with a soft click. She looked me up and down, her eyes cold and calculating. She'd always been the harsh one in our family. The one who never smiled at family gatherings. The one who always found something wrong with everything I did. When I graduated high school, she said my grades could have been better. When I got into college, she said I chose the wrong major. When Derek proposed, she didn't even congratulate me. She just asked if I was sure I knew what I was doing. Now, standing in my wedding dress, I felt small under her gaze. She walked closer, circling me like a shark. Her perfume was too strong, making my nose itch. She stopped right in front of me, so close I could see the lines around her mouth. Then she leaned in, her breath hot against my ear. "You don't deserve this dress," she whispered. The words hit me like a slap. I stepped back, my heart pounding in my chest. "What did you just say?" My voice came out shakier than I wanted. Aunt Linda's lips curved into a thin smile. "You heard me, Emma. You don't deserve that dress. You don't deserve any of this." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Not today, not on my wedding day. Why would you say that? Why are you trying to hurt me?" She shrugged, examining her nails casually. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just telling you the truth. Your mother spent her savings on that dress. Money she could have used for herself. And for what? So you can marry that man." The way she said, "that man," made my stomach turn. There was something poisonous in her tone. Something that went beyond her usual cruelty. "Derek is a good man," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He loves me, and I love him." Aunt Linda laughed, a sound without humor. "Love," she repeated, mocking me. "You're so young and naive, Emma. You think love is enough. You think you know who Derek really is." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. "I know exactly who he is. We've been together for 6 years. We've been through everything together." Aunt Linda moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. 6 years means nothing if those years were built on lies. She opened the door and left, leaving me standing there, confused and angry. What did she mean by lies? Derek had always been honest with me. He told me everything. We shared everything. I tried to shake off her words, but they clung to me like cobwebs. I looked at myself in the mirror again. The happy bride I'd seen 5 minutes ago was gone. Now I just looked scared. There was another knock on the door. "Emma, you ready? It's almost time." It was my maid of honor, Sarah. I plastered on a smile as Sarah walked in. She looked beautiful in her pale blue bridesmaid dress. Her red hair was curled perfectly. She took one look at my face and frowned. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I wanted to tell her about Aunt Linda. I wanted to share the strange, hurtful thing she'd said. But what would that accomplish? Sarah would just get angry, and we'd waste time that we didn't have. The ceremony was starting in 20 minutes. "Nothing," I lied. "Just nervous, I guess." Sarah grabbed my hands and squeezed them. "It's normal to be nervous. But Emma, you and Derek are perfect together. I've never seen two people more meant for each other." Her words should have comforted me, but Aunt Linda's voice still echoed in my head. 6 years means nothing if those years were built on lies. What lies? What could Derek possibly be hiding from me? Sarah helped me fix my veil and handed me my bouquet. White roses mixed with baby's breath. Derek had helped me pick them out 3 months ago. We'd spent an entire afternoon at the florist, laughing and debating between roses and lilies. That day felt like a lifetime ago now. "Come on," Sarah said, linking her arm through mine. "Your dad is waiting in the hallway. It's showtime." We walked out of the dressing room together. The hallway was quiet now. Most of the guests were seated in the main hall. I could hear the soft music of the string quartet playing. My dad stood at the end of the hallway, looking handsome in his black suit. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Emma," he said, his voice breaking. "You look just like your mother did on our wedding day." That made me smile for real. My parents had been married for 30 years. They were my example of true love. If I could have what they had with Derek, I'd be the luckiest woman alive. Dad took my arm, and together we walked toward the doors of the main hall. Sarah had already gone ahead to take her place with the other bridesmaids. Through the small window in the door, I could see the church was packed. Every seat was filled. Flowers decorated every surface. White ribbons hung from the pews. At the end of the long aisle, I could see Derek standing at the altar. Even from this distance, he looked nervous. He kept adjusting his tie and wiping his hands on his pants. That made me smile. I was nervous too. The music changed. That was our cue. The doors opened, and everyone stood up. All eyes turned to me. I gripped my dad's arm tighter and started walking. One step, then another. The aisle seemed impossibly long. I focused on Derek's face. He was smiling now, watching me walk toward him. Then I saw Aunt Linda. She was sitting in the third row, staring at me with that same cold expression. I tore my eyes away from Aunt Linda and kept walking. Left foot, right foot. Keep breathing, keep smiling. We were halfway down the aisle now. I could see Derek more clearly. His dark hair was perfectly combed. His suit fit him well. He looked like a prince from a fairy tale. My prince. The man I was about to spend the rest of my life with. Then something strange happened. Derek's best man, Marcus, leaned over and whispered something in Derek's ear. Derek's face changed instantly. The smile disappeared. His skin went pale. He looked like someone had just punched him in the stomach. Marcus whispered something else, more urgently this time. Derek shook his head, but Marcus kept talking. What was going on? We were almost at the altar now. Just a few more steps. Derek wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking past me, toward the back of the church. I turned to follow his gaze. My breath caught in my throat. Standing at the back of the church, in the open doorway, was a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall and blonde, wearing a simple black dress. She held a small child in her arms. A little boy who couldn't have been more than 2 years old. The church fell silent. Even the string quartet stopped playing. Everyone turned to stare at the woman and child. She started walking down the aisle toward us. Not rushing, but with steady, determined steps. My dad's grip on my arm tightened. "Who is that?" he whispered. I couldn't answer. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The woman reached the altar and stopped right in front of Derek. The little boy in her arms had Derek's eyes. The same shade of hazel. The same shape. The same way they crinkled at the corners. "Hello, Derek," the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost eerily so. "I think it's time you told everyone the truth." Derek's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Marcus stepped forward, his face red. "Ma'am, you need to leave. This is a private ceremony." The woman ignored him. She kept her eyes locked on Derek. "Tell her, Derek. Tell your bride about us. Tell her about your son." The word "son" echoed through the silent church like a gunshot. My legs went weak. My dad had to hold me up to keep me from falling. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. I'd wake up any second now, back in the dressing room, with Sarah knocking on the door. But I didn't wake up. The little boy reached out his chubby hand toward Derek. "Dada," he said clearly. The word broke something inside me. I looked at Derek, begging him with my eyes to deny it. To tell everyone this was a mistake. Some crazy woman who had the wrong person. But Derek wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the child with an expression I'd never seen before. Recognition. And guilt. "Derek." My voice came out as barely a whisper, but he heard it. He finally looked at me, and I saw tears streaming down his face. "Emma, I can explain. Please, just let me explain." The woman holding the child laughed bitterly. "Explain what, Derek? How you've been lying to her for 3 years. How you have a wife and son that you abandoned." "Wife." The word hit me like a physical blow. "You're married?" I asked, my voice rising. "You're married and you were going to marry me." The guests erupted into chaos. People were standing up, talking loudly, pointing. My mother pushed her way through the crowd and grabbed my hand. "Emma, come away from him. Come away right now." But I couldn't move. I needed answers. I needed to understand how the man I loved, the man I'd trusted completely, could do this to me. "How long?" I asked Derek. "How long have you been lying to me?" He wiped his face with his hand. "Her name is Rachel," Derek said, his voice shaking. "We got married when we were 20. It was a mistake. We were too young. It didn't work out. Rachel's face twisted with anger. Didn't work out? You mean you left when I got pregnant? You disappeared without a word. I spent 2 years looking for you. Derek shook his head desperately. That's not true, Emma. I left because she was controlling and manipulative. I had to get away. Liar, Rachel shouted. You left because you didn't want to be a father. You didn't want the responsibility. I felt like I was watching this scene from outside my body. This couldn't be my Derek. My Derek was kind and honest. My Derek would never abandon his own child. But looking at the little boy's face, seeing Derek's features reflected there, I couldn't deny the truth. When did you meet me? I asked quietly. Derek looked at the floor. Emma, please. When? My voice was steel now. 2 months after I left Rachel. 2 months. He'd met me 2 months after abandoning his pregnant wife. Our entire relationship was built on a lie. Every moment we'd shared, every promise he'd made, all of it was contaminated by this massive deception. Did you ever plan to tell me? I asked. Derek reached for my hand, but I jerked away. I wanted to. I tried so many times. But I was scared. I was scared. You'd leave me if you knew the truth. So you thought you'd just marry me instead. You thought you'd become a bigamist. My dad stepped forward, his face purple with rage. You need to leave. Now. Before I do something I'll regret. Derek ignored him, keeping his eyes on me. Emma, I love you. That's the truth. Everything I felt for you was real. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I should have told you about Rachel. But my love for you was never a lie. The little boy started crying, upset by all the shouting. Rachel bounced her son gently, trying to calm him. She looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. I'm sorry I had to do this here, on your wedding day. But I had no choice. Derek wouldn't return my calls or emails. He blocked me on everything. When I saw the wedding announcement in the newspaper, I knew this was my only chance to make him face what he'd done. I looked at this woman, this stranger who'd just destroyed my life. Part of me wanted to hate her. But how could I? She was a victim too. Derek had abandoned her when she needed him most. He'd left her to raise their child alone. How did you find him? I asked. Rachel gave a sad smile. It took 2 years of searching. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. When they finally tracked him down and I saw the engagement announcement, I couldn't believe it. He was just going to start over like we never existed. I turned to look at Derek. Really look at him. This man I thought I knew better than anyone. This man who'd held me through my grandmother's funeral. Who'd helped me study for my college exams. Who'd proposed to me on the beach at sunset, making promises about forever. Had any of it been real? Or was I just another chapter in his pattern of running away from his responsibilities? What about the divorce? I asked. If you left Rachel 3 years ago, why didn't you divorce her? Derek's silence was answer enough. He'd never filed for divorce. Maybe he'd hoped Rachel would never find him. Maybe he'd planned to be married to both of us, living some kind of twisted double life. You're unbelievable, I said, amazed at how calm my voice sounded. Inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was falling apart. But outside, I was ice. Emma, please, Derek begged. Don't throw away what we have. We can work through this. People make mistakes. I made a terrible mistake, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. No, I said firmly. The word felt powerful, freeing. No, we can't work through this. You didn't just make a mistake, Derek. You built our entire relationship on lies. You looked me in the eyes every single day for 6 years and lied to me. You were going to marry me while you were already married to someone else. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. You chose to deceive me. My mother put her arm around my shoulders. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you out of this dress. But I wasn't done yet. I turned to face the guests who were watching this disaster unfold. Family members, friends, Derek's co-workers. People who'd taken time out of their lives to celebrate what they thought was a beautiful love story. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, I said, my voice carrying through the silent church. The wedding is obviously cancelled. Thank you for coming. Then I looked at Aunt Linda. She was sitting in her pew, watching me with an unreadable expression. Understanding crashed over me like a wave. Aunt Linda had known. That's why she'd come to my dressing room. That's why she'd said I didn't deserve the dress. She'd been trying to warn me in her own twisted way. Our eyes met across the church. She gave me the smallest nod. I wanted to be angry at her for not telling me directly. For speaking in riddles instead of just explaining what she knew. But how do you tell someone that their entire life is about to explode? Maybe there was no good way. Maybe her cryptic warning was the best she could do. I turned and started walking back down the aisle, still holding my bouquet. My parents followed close behind me. Sarah and my other bridesmaids joined us. We left Derek standing at the altar with Rachel and his son. The child was still crying softly. The sound followed me out of the church. Outside, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Perfect weather for a wedding that would never happen. In the parking lot, I stood next to my dad's car and finally let myself cry. Not delicate tears, but huge, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. My mother held me while my dad paced back and forth, muttering angrily under his breath. Sarah was already on her phone, calling the reception venue to cancel everything. The cake, the dinner, the DJ. All of it, gone. 6 years of my life, gone. I'd given Derek everything. I'd trusted him completely. I'd built my future around him. And all of it was based on lies. I'm so stupid, I sobbed into my mother's shoulder. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Mum stroked my hair gently. You're not stupid, baby. You're trusting. You loved him, and you believed him when he said he loved you back. That's not stupid. That's human. Linda knew, I said, pulling back to look at my mother. Aunt Linda knew about Rachel and the baby. That's what she meant in the dressing room. My mother's expression hardened. How did Linda know? I shrugged helplessly. I don't know, but she tried to warn me. I just didn't understand what she was saying until it was too late. Dad stopped pacing and came over to us. We need to get you out of that dress and go home. There's going to be a lot to deal with in the next few days. He was right. I'd have to return wedding gifts. Cancel the honeymoon flights. Tell people what happened, over and over again. The thought exhausted me. But first, I needed to understand how Aunt Linda had known Derek's secret. As if summoned by my thoughts, Linda herself emerged from the church. She walked toward us slowly, her expensive heels clicking on the pavement. My mother stiffened beside me. Linda, Mum said coldly. I suppose you're proud of yourself. Aunt Linda stopped a few feet away. I tried to tell her, Margaret. In my own way, I tried. Your own way wasn't good enough, Dad snapped. Aunt Linda's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond to my father. Instead, she looked directly at me. I work at the county clerk's office, Emma. I process marriage licenses. 2 months ago, a woman came in asking for information about a marriage license issued 3 years ago. She had a child with her. Derek's child. The pieces clicked into place. Rachel must have gone to the clerk's office during her search for Derek. She would have needed proof that they were still legally married. And Aunt Linda had seen the records. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked. Why the cryptic warning in the dressing room? Linda sighed. Because of confidentiality laws. I could lose my job for sharing that information. But I couldn't let you marry a man who was already married. I thought if I warned you, you might postpone the wedding. Give yourself time to discover the truth on your own. My mother made a sound of disbelief. So you scared her on her wedding day instead. That was your solution. I did what I could within the law, Linda said defensively. Would you rather I had said nothing? Let her commit bigamy. The word bigamy hung in the air. That's what it would have been if the wedding had gone through. I would have unknowingly become Derek's second wife. The legal complications alone would have been a nightmare. You could have found another way, I said quietly. You could have sent me an anonymous note. Called me from a blocked number. Something, anything, other than whispering vague warnings minutes before I was supposed to get married. Linda's face softened slightly. You're right. I'm sorry. I handled it badly. But I was trying to protect you, Emma. In my own way. I wanted to stay angry at her, but I was too exhausted. Besides, she had tried to warn me. Without her intervention, even if it was poorly executed, I might have actually married Derek. Then Rachel would have shown up at the reception, or next week, or next month. The betrayal would have been the same, but the legal mess would have been so much worse. Thank you, I said to Aunt Linda, for trying to warn me. I understand you were in a difficult position. Linda nodded, looking relieved. Then she did something completely unexpected. She stepped forward and hugged me. It was brief and awkward, but it was real. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. You deserve so much better than him, Emma. You deserve someone who will treasure you and be honest with you. Don't let this destroy your faith in love. Then she turned and walked to her car, leaving me standing there in my wedding dress, trying to process everything that had happened. My phone buzzed in my mother's purse. She pulled it out and looked at the screen. "It's Derek," she said. "He's calling you." I took the phone and stared at his name on the screen. Part of me wanted to answer. To scream at him. To demand better explanations. But what more was there to say? He'd lied to me for 6 years. He'd been willing to commit bigamy rather than tell me the truth. I declined the call and handed the phone back to my mother. "Let's go home," I said. The ride home was quiet. My parents tried to make small talk, but I couldn't focus on anything they said. I kept replaying the last 6 years in my mind. Our first date at the movie theater. Our first kiss in the rain. The night he told me he loved me. Every anniversary, every birthday, every ordinary moment we'd shared. Had he thought about Rachel during any of those times? Had he felt guilty? Or had he convinced himself that his past didn't matter as long as he kept it hidden? At home, my mother helped me out of the wedding dress. We hung it carefully in my closet, though I knew I'd never wear it now. The dress my mother had saved for 2 years to buy. The dress Aunt Linda said I didn't deserve. Looking at it now, I understood what she'd meant. Not that I wasn't good enough for the dress, but that the dress was too good for the wedding. It was too pure and beautiful for a ceremony based on lies. 24. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, and thought about Rachel. She'd been so brave, showing up at the church with her son. Confronting Derek in front of everyone. She could have just sent a letter or made a phone call. But she'd wanted Derek to face the consequences of his actions publicly. Part of me was grateful to her. Without her courage, I might have married Derek and spent years living a lie. But part of me also felt angry at the universe for the timing. Couldn't I have found out any other day? Did it have to be at the altar, in front of everyone I loved? Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Derek. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Rachel. I got your number from Derek's phone. I'm sorry again for ruining your wedding day. But I thought you should know the whole story. Can we meet tomorrow?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Yes. Tomorrow at noon. The coffee shop on Main Street." 25. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I'd barely slept and probably looked terrible. But I didn't care. I needed to understand what had happened. I needed to hear Rachel's story. She arrived right at noon, without her son this time. She looked tired too, with dark circles under her eyes. We got our coffees and sat at a table in the corner. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Rachel began to talk. She told me about meeting Derek in college. About their whirlwind romance and quick marriage. About his excitement when she got pregnant, which turned to panic as the reality set in. About waking up one morning to find him gone, with just a note saying he needed space. About 2 years of searching, of raising their son alone, of wondering if Derek had ever really loved her at all. I listened to her story and saw my own reflection in it. We were both women who'd loved Derek Thompson. And we'd both learned that the man we loved didn't really exist. When she finished talking, I took her hand across the table. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "And thank you for saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Rachel squeezed my hand back, and we sat there together, two strangers connected by betrayal, beginning the long process of healing. Outside the coffee shop window, life went on. People walked by, laughing and talking, living their normal lives. And I realized that eventually, I would too. This pain wouldn't last forever. Derek's lies wouldn't define me. I would heal, I would grow, and someday, I would trust again. But it would take time. And that was okay.